Hey there, how's it going, everybody? Wayne here to talk to you about my unboxing of new 3D printer I just got. I ordered this thing, actually checked the invoice, and I think it was middle or beginning of 2018 when the Kickstarter or equivalent occurred for it. But really excited because this provides features that I had not seen before in any of the printers available, and so something new to me. So you see I've got several Robo 3D printers behind me, both two R1s and an R2. And so this was kind of an interesting adventure. This is me picking up my M3D, it's basically quad. So this is more about the actual hot end and the extruder setup than it is the printer itself. So it's based on the Crane series of printers, but it has this quad hot end for it. I was an early adopter, and so I'm in batch 3, just got the printer delivered yesterday, and I'm going to go through and see what it looks like. Yeah, so this says February, I know that's when that process, when did it say I ordered it? Somewhere in there I saw something that said when I ordered. June of 2018 is when I ordered it. Alright, so what I'm going to do is probably going to end up placing everything down here, but I wanted to kind of show what's in the box and how it looks right now. So I was kind of surprised because the box itself is just a shipping box. It's not an actual branded box at all. And it's just got a bunch of bubble wrap with everything in it. It comes in with a congratulations on your Crane 3D printer. It's here, standard warranty. Check your power voltage to make sure it's correct. That is important. It says you're free to modify your machine, but any modifies or attempted repairs that cause damage to your printer will void the warranty. That's crazy because from what I've been watching in the community, modding is the first thing you do to this printer in order to make it work reliably. So we'll see how that goes. Alright, so getting into the bubble wrap, and I'm just going to toss it to the side as I come through. Bubble wrap around the edges, all the sides. And it looks like everything is kind of in one big set here. So pulling that out, check the box. The bottom has a little bit of foam, but other than that, that's basically it. So that will go under. And now we have the printer. Now I did not plan for cutting this open, but I have scissors here. Otherwise I probably would have used a knife. We'll see if I can get into it without. So, see it wrapped with some plastic wrap. Cover the packaging. I may not actually need scissors. We'll see. Like I said, this is going to be my first experience. Okay, it's wrapped both sides. More just bubble. Looks like they did one big wrap both directions around the printer. Okay, so this piece, the Z gantry. Let's see. Oh, that continues that way. Alright, so that'll be finished unwrapping that. Sled. Got a separate bag there. Then more bubble wrap. More bubble wrap. More bubble wrap. Left with what looks like the main base to everything, although, is the power supply directly under this one? That's what it's looking like. For some reason I thought it was in a different position. And then the bed is just lightly taped on there. It looks like that fell. Anyhow, the gantry part, so the wrap continues. I apologize, I don't have a nice studio like you see all the professionals do. This is just my basement where I do all my projects and keep my printers. Since I don't normally cast or do that with printing and projects, it's not set up. This isn't my job. This is just hobby. Whoop. But yeah, this is just hobby number, I don't know what. Where I like having technology. I like building things. Alright, so main gantry, some foam around. There's the head. Now I'll be curious, since this is batch 3 of the early adopters, if there's been upgrades, changes, things like that to the printer from what other people have acquired and the versions they have. So I'll be very curious to kind of see if there's any differences there. Okay. I'm also a little surprised that right now I'm not seeing a manual of any kind with it. I think everything might be digital, but we'll see. Got some big rubber feet. I'm assuming that'll offset the electronics on the base there. Looks like spatula, scraper tool, as well as, actually that's kind of nice, clipper. What's funny is, for as much printing as I've been doing, years I have it, I don't actually have, I think, an official nice clip tool. I've used scissors and other things in the past, so that's actually a bonus. Adds to my tool selection. Here we have the screen. Main computer behind it. Basic. You know, these are, honestly, these screens are basically, what, $13 off of Amazon for any of the various ones I use. Granted, this is a rep wrap setup versus, I think my other ones are all, what's the OS they're using? Forget right now. Oh well. Top of my head. The other one. Marlin. They're all running Marlin. Alright, we got tools, wrench, what I'm assuming kind of hot end stuff like that. Actually, this has, I know in the construction of this it has some, I might have to keep that. A lot of the connection stuff are bolts that you get in there. But it's got, looks like 4 Allen wrenches of various sizes. Granted, that's funny because I already do have basically every Allen wrench I could hope. But it's got essentially 4 different size Allen wrenches for everything we might need. It's got regular nut wrench, clips that should be to hold the bed on. I've not used that mechanism before with any of the beds I've had, but it kind of makes sense. I don't know what this is. Oh, is this a USB drive? It is. Alright, so we got a USB drive here. That's a design I wasn't expecting. And, oh, if only I could read that. I don't know what the actual characters on it are. Shucks. And then a couple bolts, which I'm assuming are part of the vertical connection. Alright, so I think that's everything that's in the box and ready to assemble. Now, it doesn't have printed directions on it. I'm going to assume something's on the USB. So what I'm going to do is take a moment. I'm going to go grab my laptop, and then I will take a look at what the directions are for this. See what else it maybe tells me. Alright. So that is just a card reader for the actual mini SD or whatever in there. And so now I just want to make sure I'm doing things right. I want to go through the actual like how-tos on this while I put this together, because it looks pretty straightforward. I see 2 screw holes here, comes with 4 screws here, so that looks straightforward. But let's go ahead and hit the actual guide on their site. Yep, remove it from the box, all the plastic wrap. Don't cut any sensitive parts. Think I survived that? Remove the bolts at the bottom of each upright rail. I don't have bolts on the bottom of each upright rail. I'm assuming that's because that's what this is. So I do not see that. Alright. So that's something that's changed. Set them aside. Got the bolts. Inspect for damage. So other than, I think these wheels and this all are pretty loose, and that's like super loose, so I'm sure there's some tightening involved there. Otherwise, let's see, end stops all look like they're there. That all looks good. Vertical motor, single motors there. The only other thing is I see is that the bracket back here on the vertical gantry looks like that little back piece that's zip tied to the cord looks like it's bent. That metal, which I don't think is intentional. That might have been banged pretty hard. Otherwise, everything looks, let's see, end stop here. It all looks to be intact. So I think I'm ready to go to the next stage. Assembly. Be careful not to stress or pull in the cables. Yeah, that's good to know. Have a friend assist. What? Well, that'd be nice. That's not going to happen. Sure that everything... Alright, so first it's connect the top gantry with the bolts and Allen key. So let's see. It's got to be these ones since the directions... Ooh. That's loose. I just noticed one of these screws here is pretty loose. That I probably need to tighten up. But let's find the right wrenches for each piece of this. I'll tighten that before I put this on. So that looks like... Nope, bigger than that. These, that doesn't make sense unless, like I said, it doesn't have bottom bolts in there. These are the only other things out there, but they've got the little ends on them, which surprises me. But I'll have to look. I guess that fits into those bottom rails. So what I'm going to do, since it's just me, is turn this sideways. That doesn't seem right at all. No, these have to be for the feet. I don't think they sent me the necessary bolts. Awesome. So I'm going to have to source my own bolts for the Y-axis. Come on, you guys are starting so well. That is all kinds of loose. It's not even square. Hey, alright, so just got back from a trip to the hardware store. Picked up sets of M8, or M5, sorry, M5.8 by, unfortunately they only had 30, not 25, so they're going to be a little longer, but hopefully that will work out. But since they were not included in the original shipping packaging from Crane /M3D, I picked up my own, and also had to pick up some lock washers to go with it. Let's see. So I got those. Where? I know I just pulled out. There it is. The one that I took with me as a guide, so that I'd make sure I got the right ones. So hopefully these all match up just right, and I can go forward with putting this thing together. So hard to do it. All right. Also got, like I said, the lock washers. My best to mimic what was already should have been included. So additional cost right off the bat. Like I said, with that other bent one, we'll see. Hopefully everything, once I get it all squared up, it'll be true. If the only thing that's damaged is that bent piece, I think I'll live. It's unfortunate, but I don't think that's the end of the world. So let's go back to where I was prior with this. Trying to line all this up with my friend being just me. That's okay. That's not right. Easier if I do it from a little bit afar. Okay. Let's see if I can get all these started before actually tightening it up all the way. I'll probably end up doing with some of the, because this, honestly, assembly-wise, this is pretty minor. So it's not like this is going to take me hours to do, fully wire everything, like if I was doing a kit of a Prusa or something like that. That might take a little longer to do. This is actually minimal assembly, but it looks like while it's not a lot of assembly, there's probably a lot of, you know, shoring up, tweaking that needs to happen. That's especially true, I think, of the, like I said, how this is bent, things like that. Kind of get it all set to go. So hopefully there's enough room in there. I've not actually worked with these kind of rails before to know how deep they are. So hopefully this won't be an issue. I may also, as I'm going to get it just snug but not tight until I get them all on there, because I don't know what the tolerances are, if that's going to keep it all square and straight, because I know that's probably the biggest issue. But it's nice that this is metal rail. Usually consider that nice and quality. One of the challenges to the Robos is they're mostly plastic, which concerns me for overall rigidity, and I've had to add a few things. And so, alright, let's see. Now that it's up, doesn't feel like there's any room to really wiggle in it. Nice thing is, even though these were a little longer, fit just fine. Lock down that washer. All right. Now let's see how this all feels. I'm going to take off the board here. It's interesting, it says 3M, so this has a stick to it. It looks like it has a build-tack surface I got with it. I forget. I have to double check how that setup's supposed to work. So I'll set that aside. Seems like it's moving freely. Yeah, this is all kinds of loose. Not sure what. Like the looseness is actually in the print head more than the rail system. So I'm thinking these screws are going to have to tighten, and then also actually like that. That is surprisingly loose, and so we'll have to see which things. I don't know if it's the bottom one or the top two that I need to tighten down. We'll see. All right, well, so that's following the directions. Okay. Line the bolt holes. Ensure all motor cables are connected. That's what it says next. This one's right here in the back. It has a little clip on it that says Z, telling me that this is for the Z-axis, so nice. These are already connected. Actually, this is already all connected, which I'm going to pull apart anyways because I did, following thank you guys on the Facebook group and Reddit and such, I had already pre-printed myself a top fan to keep the motors cool, even though I have also ordered, that's cool, basically should just fit, bam. I also did order upgraded motors that eventually I may use, not yet. I'm going to try to get along with what's base before I do any upgrades like that. Alright. 4-wheel neck mother. So the Y, that, I think everything else, oh wait, there we go, and stop. So that wire painter's tape there. Okay, end stops on the back side of here, which I've also, see that one, looks like it just comes underneath. Boom. There we go. Those are both connected. Now this does not have any cool balancing wire or nuts on it like people have printed. I may do that still. And I did get also printed a spacer, which I think is for back here for this Z-stop, so that if you do put the nicer nuts on, there's room. Oh, look at that. Interesting. So does that need to come? Question is, should that go around the bed? Or around the brace down here? Doesn't look like there's room for it. It's pretty tight right there for the full Z. Let's see. Move this all the way up. So that's interesting. Almost like it needs, like it makes sense. I'd probably put a zip tie along this rail here, something to hold this over in some way so that it's free from the y-axis movement. If at full, yeah, it's right about there. So if I put it right there, I think it'd be all right. Oh, that is the limit. Okay. This actually moves. So I give credit that the Z-axis seems smooth. So those don't feel bad. Here's that bent piece I was mentioning, how this is bent down. Like, I know this is potentially, this mount is designed to have the Bowden extruder on it. And no way that would work here because that is bent down significantly. Except that I really don't want to potentially mess up the nut and the bearing because that moves very smooth. Yeah, that's an issue. Okay. Now that, like I said, this part is loose in two ways. The gantry's loose. So let's see if that's part of the discussion next. Nope, next it has do the monitor, stuff like that. I think before I do that, I do want to shore this up because this is bothering me. Guess just those screws. I watched the videos on how to dismantle a lot of this, and I seem to believe that there's more to taking off the main motor housing than just these two screws. Like, I feel like there's more to that. Oh, actually, so these are not the issue. It's the ones in back that attach. So let me tighten those back up. I actually hope I don't have to tear apart this motor housing for a while. Alright, so oh, interesting. The wrench they include barely, like, actually fits for it. That's a struggle. I guess the bottom one is the main one I can loosen comfortably. I have to get to the back of this. Have to. Hopefully I'll meet some of you guys in the forums and stuff and help explain how wrong I am on this. Alright, take that off. Oh yeah, have to see. The recommendation, I believe, is to use pliers to pull that down. Not those ones. I suppose I can use the electric ones. There we go. Alright, so I just loosen that to get it off. Now as I'm looking, like I said, there's play back and forth here. Feel like that should not be. And so I'm going to try to square it up, which it looks like one, that should be a little bit to the right. So it looks like this, I swear this got banged up somewhere. Either sitting around or... Alright, tightening both those screws, that absolutely took out the slop. Like I said, that was ugly, that initial slop. So got that done. Alright. Now let's get this back on the rail. Let's get this back together. This likely will be the more problematic piece. Nice thing is it is from the factory fairly tight, which is good. Oh, come on. Feel like an extra finger on this might help. There we go. That's in. I don't know if I like that means for tightening, or if we're getting that on there. Alright, so now, let's see about these wheels. So let's start with the bottom one. See if that's enough, or if I'm also going to go in and adjust the top two. Definitely feels like a job where a couple extra sets of hands could be nice. Okay, you get on there and hold. Because if I hold this so that's tight, that's better. Come on. Yeah, that is significantly better. I feel like there's a tiny bit of front and back wobble. Honestly, trying to get in there, I'd have to take the whole thing off to tighten the top ones or try to move them down, but that made a pretty big difference. So if I'm just... Yeah, that feels pretty good. I like that. Way better than what I started with. Cool. Alright, so now I feel a little more confident following the directions, plugging the screen in and doing the stuff up front. So, still haven't done the feet. That's not in the directions yet. Alright, so. Okay, these bolts. I was like, how is that going to go? Is it like that? Ah, that's way low. But hey, that looks like that'll fit. Alright, so it's got a 2 and a 1. hopefully it says it on here. So the 2 is labeled, just like in the directions. So 1. And I am looking at getting that touchscreen upgrade for this for RepRap. That sounds cool. Let's see. Alright, so those are on. It looks like the ones I tightened before. Get to untighten those again. That's okay. Doesn't say a whole lot else on there other than make sure the wires are run well. These come right out of the frame, right under it, so I don't see anywhere else or anything else to do with it. That's actually kind of nice. Right where it needs to be. Yeah, the wires go right underneath. I mean, I guess you could tuck them in a little bit, maybe fold them back on itself. I might zip tie it tighter once this is on. But otherwise, I don't see anything else to do there. Alrighty. Screen secured. That does pull it up a little bit so it's not touching the ground. I feel like this one needs to be tightened more than just a hand on the little side. Alright, so all that's together. Also, looks like my voltage is set correctly. I'm checking the size, it says 115. That's important. Otherwise, everything else looks like it's set. So that's all good. Z end stop positioning. Make sure it's powered off. And make sure nothing's damaged during shipping. Make sure the end stop gets raised. Okay, first step is moving your Z. Appropriate height is examine the exposed bolts Y carriage. And to tighten and loosen all 4 of your bed nuts such that only about 8 to 10 threads are exposed on each. Well, make me count. Ooh, eyes. 1, okay. 4, 5, 6. I mean, it looks about right. That one's longer by far. These are, oh, that's got a mount on it. That's why I was like, why are these so much different length? So that's tilted that way. That's way more threads. It's nice that they, they do this and don't give you one that actually fits there. So that's always good. Maybe magically the 5/16 one I have here will fit. Nope, too big. Okay, not my favorite one. Probably should get a one that fits just right, but this also goes down to the idea of having the better nuts on it that you can grab by hand to adjust. Because this is a silly design. In reality, because I think all the mods that I've seen are 3D printable for an additional all of nothing cost to Crane and M3D. I don't see why they don't do that themselves. Like I was hoping, as this being a third batch of the early adopters, I would have seen more upgrades on it based on community feedback, which I've seen. Like Robo actually did a decent job of that. I'll give Robo credit. I've got a thread too far on this, because by the time the R1 came out, the middle one I have, there were significant upgrades from the old Kickstarter. The R1 Plus had significant upgrades. I mean, I've been playing with the R1 Plus myself and giving it a taller build volume, the chain drive, stuff like that. The other things I've done, I put an E3D V6 on it, although now I'm checking out that Chinese Dragon. I'm kind of curious to see. So, oh yeah, I love that when you actually move the motors. Provides power into the system. Okay. These ones, man, they are all different. Okay, well, this is why that's a step. Sure enough, assuming these are all the same and spring tension, all that. Well, it'd be interesting because this one, this has got a complete cutout in the middle there for the wire harness. It would have a shorter spring. Not the right wrench slash pliers for this, but close. I mean, it works. Because they had, like, they should have put a wider washer underneath the nut they have on there, on the bottom of the screw, to distribute for the spring, because otherwise the spring's all kind of around the edge, which means it's not consistent. So I could see, if nothing else, as a minor upgrade, it's putting a fatter washer underneath that nut. I have at the top of the screw, but just below the nut they then have below the screw, the lock nut. It's basically about right all the way around. That one looks a little longer. Pretty close. All right. So, out those are there. Manually center the print head over the bed. Okay. Manually pretty centered. A little bit of play. I may have to adjust that still. We'll see how it does. Let's see. Move the bed forward along the y-axis. So it's centered. Yeah, did that. I can see why you want this clipped in right here. That's silly. Okay, so then we're going to focus on the Z end stop here, and so it's bring this down. I feel like that still has just the littlest bit of play in that. Or yeah, there's still some adjustment to be done there. But I'm worried about here because looks like I need to move it up just a tiny bit. What? In between. Alright, so I just finished tightening up and adjusting the end stop for Z. Get that. Oh yeah, way better as a whole. Just tightening everything up and making, yeah, way better. That killed pretty much all that wobble. All right, so now let's bring it back down again. Oh, so I actually raise it up a little bit. I have to lower the end stop. Now that I have that locked. So, the bed's levels I'm going to get it right now. Next, what I'm doing is the feet, which according to this video, I preset like this. They have just that little bit of gap with the screw in it, so do that with all of these. We're going to pop this through. Uses the second size Allen wrench and just get it started, just barely, so that it can be pushed into the frame. I don't remember if I saw any upgrades for the feet yet on any of the print stuff out there. I don't think I have. A lot of different types of feet for different printers, but I don't think for the Crane or Quad I've seen it. I guess I've mostly looked up the Quad, and so I'd have to look more specifically for the Crane design to see if there's something for it. Now I put over, it's still going to be that side since I started to actually get things together on this. Come on. Alright, so hopefully nothing slides too bad. Print head. I suppose what I could do, because the more you raise this, the better that angle will be. This. I guess, does it want to be inside or outside? I guess inside shouldn't matter too much. Make sure it hooks. And then tighten. Nice. That actually went in really well. Using the inside one. So it's not hanging out the edge. This one, I wonder if it's because I wasn't actually on it. This one's not rotating. Come on. Oh, that's doing the opposite. That's tightening it too much. Come on. Come on. There we go. I like that on the rail. At least this one you can see it. Nice. There we go. Oh. Come on. That one. There we go. Pulling it to the side actually seems to help straighten it as you butt it up against the edge once it's in there. Man, I might have to turn this one so I can actually see it. There we go. Definitely helps to be able to see that it flips against the frame. There. See? 4 up there, inner rail all the way pulled against the frame to flatten up the little lock on it. So now, shouldn't be scuffing up the bottom anymore, gives room for the fan. Should be good. That's all good. I don't think it just talks about tightening them. Should be good. Alright, that video is done.
Okay,
So now, rubber feet, spool holder. I don't have the spool holders yet, so I will probably stop all this until I print spool holders. But it should be everything else. So with that in mind, this isn't the flattest table. I'll probably put it just on the edge here. Like I say, I still want to put this on, but I think I am going to at least turn it on right now to see. No. Is everything connected? Does it work before I go any further with the adding the fans on top? And I will probably get my other printers going to getting the spool holder top mount thing going. Since I want to be able to put the 4 spools on it. Huh. It's not a very long cord. Let's see. There we are. Plug you in right here. All right, moment of truth. Hopefully nothing explodes. It's a good sign. It is reading. That's a good sign. Okay, do each. Starts at 95. Let's put you up just to make sure it heats. I can hear the fan kick on. Let's do the bed as well. Not putting up to full temp, just getting them going. Get that going. Make sure all the fans kick on. Side fans. Those are running. Pulling off some little fluff here. So that's good. Should be able to find to heat it up without anything else going on, since I don't have anything in it. Get clogged. And I'm going to use my handy temperature gun to kind of see what's going on. So the bed, I'm seeing 50°C, almost right on. Right in the middle there. Edges are colder by far. Actually, front back's not terrible. Edge looks like that end on the front side is probably the coolest, but otherwise that's doing pretty good. Now the hot end, am I missing you? There we go. A little harder to see from this end. I'm only seeing 50-ish. Did I tell it 50 or 150? Oh, 150 for the nozzle. Let me check from the other side. Not that this thing's hugely accurate, but says it's at 100 something, but that's solid. Says it is. Alright, well, regardless, that's how I'm going to stop it now until I do the mods on the top. So, that's where we're at. Hey everybody, alright, it's been a little while, obviously, new day, new shirt, because I had to do some 3D printing to get ready to 3D print. So with the Crane, I've gone on a bunch of the Reddit page, like I said before, and the Facebook group's been really active and helpful. Thank you guys for that. The printer did not come with any spool holders, and the ones they have as part of the site are, I would say, too small for traditional 1 kilogram spools. Are meant for the minis. So I found these designs that clip onto the top of any Crane printer and printed them out. I'm using this kind of cross layout. I figure that'll distribute some of the weight for the different spools, and I'm hopefully will be able to thread it properly for it to not bind and properly load into the quad. So we'll see how that goes. I also had pre-printed but got installed the top mount fan to help cool the stock motors, with the cable tied to the back of it to manage and keep it all solid in there. I also printed off the bigger, if you will, nut holders, so I don't need a tool to adjust the bed height. I can just use them by default, just screw on them, as well as the relocator for the Y-axis Z-stop, such that it won't get hit by the rear one of those. So my most recent challenge that I just ran into this one, so the first thing I ran into was they did not from the company include the proper bolts for the vertical axis on it to connect this part of it. I had to go to the hardware store and get my own. And the next one I just ran into and just solved was that on the SD card from factory, it did not have all the proper files on it for the Duet board. So I went to Crane's website, to their GitHub, and downloaded it, and I had to format the SD card and copy an entirely new set of the files over. When I looked at this directory previously, it was entirely missing the www file, which has the web control software in it that you can interface, and I was getting a message the reason I found this is when I tried to log into the board through the IP, once I got that set, it just came up to a page saying that there's no web software. You double check that the right files are in the www directory. They weren't there. I just put the directory over, put it back in, still did not work. So I went so far as to format the SD card, copy a fresh set of the files that looked like they were last updated July of last year, of 19, over to the Duet board, and now I'm able to connect to it with the Duet software. So I'm now finally at that next stage for being able to hopefully get this thing printing today. Other little tweaks, again, the back board, or what would be a Bowden mount for that kind of motor, was bent severely. I'd shown that earlier. I put another zip tie on it to better hold the rest of the wire loop from it. I think that's the only other thing I have done to the printer so far to hopefully get ready. To mount my own fan on top, I had to get my own small wires to splice in, and I put it in actually into the back of the plug that plugs down into the other fan, into the rear fan, instead of the nice kit that you can get from, what is it, JRT 3D? That kit that they have that has it already with a Y-splice, I kind of just spliced into it myself so that I wouldn't have to wait to get that, because I really want to try to get this thing up and printing. Alright, so next stage is, now that I have, and I guess I'll put the laptop so it's a little easier for me to get to up here. But now that I am actually in and logged into the Crane Quad software, says it's idle, things like that. I'm going through, I had just finished on the website here for the to get into the IP, got it set up, so that is there. So the next step in installation now is getting to know the menu structure. I've already gone through the prepare. I'm also moving it here so I can see while I'm going. So it's telling you to go through the menu here, to kind of click through, seeing where it is about temps, feed rates, all the stuff that's on the front page, to the next menu about being able to auto home, all the access. Actually, I'm going to give that a shot, because that's like one of, oh, nope. That is probably one of the best ways to test that something's working. I may have to adjust that again. The axis, now that I hit it, went deep before it actually hit. So I need to adjust these again. So I'll do that next. So let me see, can I then, because it's holding the axes now, so I don't know if this has a good way to release the stepper, so I'm going to shut it back off. And now that it's here, yeah, it's taking a while before it's hitting that Z step, so I need to bring the board further down. Or I could raise the Z step again. I kind of liked it. And I'll just tighten them. Again, it's so much easier when I have these nice printed handholds on it. Let's see. Oh, let's go further. better. That's almost there. That's about perfect. Alright, so now let's do what I did last time. I need to get all 4 of these about as lined up as I can. And by doing that, what I'm doing is I am visually inspecting how close to each corner it is. The nozzle. It's kind of that old paper method where it's pretty close. Maybe a little lighter. Now, challenge is this metal plate, I also will argue, is not as perfectly flat as it could be. That's actually pretty good. I did a good job back, left and right. So this one needs to come off just a little. Alright, that's about perfect. So let's see how well that translates to when I home it, if it's pushing down on the bed as much now. Previously I had tested to make sure that it heated up. Yeah, see that like gets it right there. Hopefully that's solid. That's about the best I could ask. Alright. So, that's put together. Talks about, oh, disable step motors. That's under page 3. Auto home Z, disable, okay. I wonder if that's under each menu then. Alright, so next, looking at the interface for the Duet web control. I may cut some of this out because it's not stuff everybody needs to know. I'm still learning as I'm going. So now that I have it, let's see if that works as well. So if I hit home all, it did send the control, so that's a good sign. Good sign. I also, admittedly, thing that's not in the directions anywhere I've seen so far, but you'll see before I print, is the layers I got here. I have what looks like the print material that you would get for, like I have on my other printers, the interface for doing, what is it, the adhesion layer to it to help it adhere better. I'm not sure if this is an official branded one. It doesn't have any logos on it. It just says 3M on the back for the tape. And then I believe this is the flexible board because it does flex a little, but I don't remember what was advertised as to coming with. So I believe I could print it flat, I could flip it, but I think I'm supposed to put this on here because I don't believe it's supposed to go straight onto the metal plate. That would seem silly to me, and that's what the clips are for. But again, I haven't seen it in the directions yet, so before I print, I'm going to decide, because I feel like I need to stick this to this, clip it on, which gives it another, wow, like 2 millimeters or so of Z. And so I may have to adjust that again, either the print or, like I said, the Z-axis stepper click, end stop, just to see, so it's in a nice spot. So I still have to deal with this. That part. Come on, M3D and Crane. Give me some good directions. Alright, before I go further to that, let me check. Oh, I clicked it again. Let me check the heater and such. Let's bring it up to 180C for the tip. Okay, so that should be starting to kick on, and as that starts to heat up, it says 180 heat here. The rear fan hasn't kicked on yet, but as that does, the top one should as well. That's how it's linked in. And then let's also take the bed up to its base setting that's default here to 55. I'm still going to go in because they talk about one of the things, thank you to everybody on the forum stuff about setting up the feed rates for the quad. The recommendation is to drop the speed that's when you're loading the different filaments, how fast it needs to load in. You need to be very careful because normally it does it at about 5 millimeter per second, but they say that these motors, that's a bit tough. Okay, the fan kicked on. So instead to run it at 3, and for the amount to feed, not to do the whole 100 or anything as you're first mixing it, but to do more 20 and then go to, I think they said 23 or 28 or something like that to start the initial mix and how it comes out. So I'm going to be following that when I go into actually starting it up. But I am getting the temperature. It's showing that it is going up to what I've seen. And I'm also seeing that here on the front display. So it is reassuring that those two things are matching. So it looks like my software is connected and doing what it's supposed to. So I believe I should be able to move on to the next step. Talks about the dynamic piece on the bottom, print status, code, information about the file. That's all good. Bed leveling. Your bed may have settled while shipping. So the challenge, why I'm careful with how much string, I've put them down enough that the springs are getting tighter, and so I don't want to put them too much further down. I mean, it's sacrificing a little bit of verticality, but I think that's minimal. So actually, before I do the bed leveling, I'm going to skip ahead. I'll come back to bed leveling. But I'm going to see if it has anything talking about the actual print surface stuff that I have with it. I see loading, unloading filament. Finding a model and slicing it. Going in straight to first print. Yeah, printing your spool holders, what they're saying there. So that's all they have in the actual setup directions. And so I do not see anything about this. So I am going to make the assumption of, I guess, you know, I could just clip this too. I guess I could just clip this too. I'm trying to decide, like, how well will this adhere if I don't use the adhesive on it? Nah, I feel like it's too much potential flex. So I am going to attach this to this flex plate. Oh, not quite perfect. But that should keep us slightly off the edge here. Just slightly off the edge. Nice is actually I can see through here, so let me, working from the center out, reduce air bubbles. Get some good adhesion on here. That's actually kind of cool. You can see myself pressing through to try to get rid of air bubbles. Right in the middle though, man. Alright, so it's kind of unfortunate. Right in the middle, still a bit. Right there, this bubble I can't seem to get rid of. Oh, I might have to peel to do that. Because that is a big enough bubble, I feel it. attempt. That's good adhesion. I don't know, it might be adhered too well. That bubble has a potential. It's not high, but it's got potential that could catch and tear, depending on how close to the head it is. So keep that in mind. These sheets aren't too bad to replace, get new ones of. You can get any brand at this point. So I'm going to, before I bed level it, like I said, I'm going to put this surface on, since I believe it's what I'm going to initially try to print on the most. I haven't seen any comments yet in the forums about people using this surface. I don't know if it's just me that bought it, but you know, hopefully we'll see. That's the whole point of me making this video, is to share what I'm learning based on things I did and didn't see from the community. And that's no fault to the community. It's just, you know, everybody's got their own experience. And so this is going to be mine. And because I've used these kind of sheets on my Robos, although I have painter tape on there now because it's been a pain in my ass. So, like I said, I'll probably have to now reduce this again or raise that Z-stop. And I kind of want to raise the Z-stop just because, I'm going to turn this off again, just because I don't want these springs on the bed to compress too far. I feel like that'll reduce its structural, or the ability to level it properly. So I am loosening and going to raise the Z-stop. Hopefully just about as much as that added material is on there. But we will adjust it again. I could print straight on the middle, but that seems silly when I have these sheets to put on it. Alright. Tighten in there. As I come down, let's see where it clicks. Okay, so it clicks there, so I need to release. I raised it a little high. That's okay. I'd rather be a little high. Okay. I did not properly cool it down, I will admit. Looks pretty damn good. Okay. That's looking about as good as I could hope. So, back onto the software. That's going good. Checking, and I finished re-leveling the bed here after putting on the interface material they sent along and the flex board, so that it's a little different height now, but that should work out for me. Should be ready to go. So now I'm going to do the bed leveling step, since it says it may have altered and done stuff. So what's it say? Prepare bed leveling. Yeah, let's see what it says. Prepare. There's cool down. Bed leveling. Basic bed leveling. I think I've already basically done this because they don't have like a smart level here or mesh, it looks like. So I don't actually think I need to do that. Because that's what I just did. I just leveled it manually going through each corner. So I don't need it to take me through each point to do it. This has you apply adhesive, but I don't need to do that because I have this edge. It's going, okay, so it is going to do the bed level, it looks like. Because, did it heat it then? Yeah, it looks like it heated it up. Oh, see, at least it's coming through the software here, so I'm not having to click on there. I'm able to do it from here. So, yep, like I said, I'm doing a visual one based on the height I want. Consistent, yes. That's interesting. So the actual axis here is off. Like these, if you notice that where the center is compared to the edges, completely off. Alright, awesome. Next thing I gotta figure out is how to set the limits. Man! It's not one thing, it's 8 others. So, no. Oh, you know why? Because once I put that, I haven't adjusted for the new end stop there, the Z stop. That's what I didn't do. Because once you add that piece, I totally forgot about this, so heads up if you're following along. When I moved the end stop, it was originally set below where it hits the wheel. Now it hits the actual the carriage on it. So that's something I missed. And it is my fault. So, going into the original directions here, interesting. It says that M3D caught up to this and now current releases should have knobs. However, as far as I've seen, they don't exist. Or at least mine didn't come with it. So I wonder when mine was packaged, what stage mine officially is in. Doesn't make sense. But, again, once he had... Oops, I already had that open. So, how do I change that? Or there we go. I need to go into Settings, System Editor, according to this. Editing, let's see, it's homey.g. So following along, where is homey.g? Home X, homey.g. And then, according to this, go back a few millimeters. Let's see. Millimeters. So it says G1 S2Y5. And does it have another option to change? Y5 F6000 S2 Y5 S. See. Oh, Y52 is what it normally says. So instead of Y52, it just wants Y5. Okay. So taking a bunch of time or distance out of there. Save that. And then the next one says to go to Home All and change that Y value to 5 as well. So Home All. I like that I can do this directly, and I'll give RepRap credit to be able to do this modification while it's in there. I think that's actually pretty solid. And this is another one where it's changing then this Y52 to Y5. Bam. So now let's see what it says. That should be all the mods I need to make then, according to that. So now, oh, that's not what I wanted. Okay, now I'm going to see, I'm going to do the, I'm homing it again. And now I'm going to do that same bed leveling. Basic bed level. So I'm going to run that again and see, hopefully if those settings took, it won't slide as far either direction, and I'll be good. I do like that this menu is going straight through. I like that a lot. It's actually cleaner than the Robo interface, and it seems more direct. So I appreciate that with RepRap. I also like that it's heating both the nozzle and bed at the same time. One of the things about my newer, or actually all of my Robos, now I'll have to see when I actually go through the print process. Once you tell it to print, it heats up the bed first every time, and then the nozzle, which to me just adds a couple minutes almost to starting the print job, which isn't a huge deal, but for me, I'm trying to watch that first layer go down, and so I want to see that it's okay. Okay. Clean white nozzle, there's no filament, don't need to wipe it. Okay, so that's one point. Adjust front left. We'll see where the middle ends up. Front right. A little far back. I feel like there's more area in there that I could use. So I feel like there's a bit more offset there that I could use, or more overall wide distance. But at least for an initial piece, not bad. But it looks like it's not using all the Y. So with that in mind, how do I tell the overall size? Machine properties. 230 millimeter is what it's set for. .23 centimeters, which seems like it's... Yeah, so this is 23, but it's like the center point is off a little bit. I may have to play with that, figure that out. Anyhow, I'm going to at least go to the next one. We'll see what happens here. Alright, so it talks about heating the nozzles. There's only the one nozzle. Loading and unloading filament. That's going to be next piece. Now what it doesn't tell me on here is like where to put the various filaments. On their display, or their little picture of it, they have on the head, they have it going blue, red, or magenta, right? Cyan, magenta, yellow, black. And I don't know if that's the way it's supposed to. I mean, honestly, with the slice software, you can adjust that. But, so my theory is to put middle to outside to with these holders. So I'll start with that. See how that goes. So I'm going to do another clip on the video, and we're going to do... Now that everything is preset, it is time to actually get ready to print. And so I am following the guide, and I'm going to be trying to color coordinate as much as following just what they have in there, even though I know you can set it however you need to by nozzle in the software. I am taking a chance with this based on some of the feedback I've seen online. Even with the fan on there, I'm not going to try PETG right away. Instead, I'm going to start, try PLA. I'm going to start with PETG. And I am using PETG from Novamaker. So this is what I'm going to be using. I am using some of their translucent type, transparent PETG. I figure that should be pretty. And so I'm going to see. Nice thing. Now, admittedly, I took a risk with these spool holders because they have a pretty thick end on them. And some spools have much smaller than that as a rule. So I will load this up. And because it's translucent, and to make it look really cool, I am going with a natural or clear to kind of for my K value. I don't see a tear on this, so I think cutting is my option. I'll recycle all this. That would be the back one here. See, my hope is that with all four spools on and having it back and forth like this, we'll actually balance it out better. Oh, there we go. There's nice. So, let's see. Blue or cyan, doing the front one. So I could go this way. I'm going to theoretically try to put them so that they spool towards the center and see how that works. I have not seen any, I haven't seen anything posted by people on any of the groups yet with specific recommendations on the order of this, or whether because I haven't seen anyone use a holder like this. Almost everybody's using a singular top. A lot of people have done PVC frames over the top for a rail. I don't know why this one called to me as something I thought might work. So we'll see. I could be setting myself up for failure. But now with them all mounted, I feel like I've got, at least here, a better weight distribution and balance across them. So that's kind of my theory behind this. And I could have probably, except I didn't want to design or mod anything myself. I probably could have put the spools so that they were attached equally and they both the same direction. There's a lot of things I could have done to make this work different. I just printed one of the spool holders that was available to kind of get that set. Alright, so now I am actually going to reference YouTube and the video about loading there. Because thank you, JRT, for showing your version. So, copyright JRT 3D and your whole video on...
Moment is cut flush. 0, 1, into 0, red into 1, yellow into 2 and white into 3, or your corresponding colors.
Yep, that's pretty much what I've
whatever
got.
drive you would like. You want to select the thing above 5 may damage them or cause them to bind up. Right now 5 is default, but within web controller you can right click. That will allow you to change the size, which will change to 3, and click OK. Next we want to select 10 millimeters for filament feed. But like I just showed you, you can right click on these, and in the future we're going to be using several other sizes to load the filament properly. So I'm going to change 50 to 23.
So I'm definitely following this to make it,
and 100 to 28.
Because this is learning
we want
from
to make sure
the
that the
community.
temperature is set to 170. You should have your filament up.
I have to go back to the 170 part. Okay, there. And this one he says 28, and this is going to be like live me figuring this out. So I've set up the software now. Should be good. Let's see. Make sure I'm still recording. Alright. So I've set up the software. That should be good.
Above your printer in a similar setup so that your filament spins nicely and doesn't have any restriction. Again, as these motors are very tiny, they so far do the job, but you want to make sure that there's no restriction in your filament so that your printer doesn't see any kind of errors while it's printing. So starting with your filament, you want to cut nice and even.
This is again, we're using this tool for the first time.
I've got a bent, so I'm just going to cut nice and even. As I did earlier, we changed one of those buttons to 23 as well as 28, as those are going to be the first corresponding numbers that we load.
Alright.
So starting with port 0, or you might have port 1, we're going to take the blue filament and we're going to load it by 23 millimeters. Your filament will naturally...
So, next thing I'm doing here, it says to put 170. Boom. I'm just going to put the bed to 0. We don't need that hot yet. So get those where they need to be.
have a curve that looks like this. So that's how we're going to load into the port.
Okay, so they're saying bring this down. And that it's going to have a natural curve.
Curve that looks like this.
Using this curve.
So that's how we're going to load into the port. Click on 0. Make sure we're on 23 and 3 and extrude.
Oh, that'll
You'll
be
feel
fun.
the filament going in.
So 23 and 3, it's up to temp. 23, 3, and then I'll hit extrude. I do feel like in the future I'm going to want some kind of filament guide. There. Yep, I feel it pulling. Grabbed it. Actually, this is going to be a step where I go ahead. I read ahead, and so I'm going to mark the filament as I'm putting it in, just so I can have some gauge that it's moving. It's probably not the right ink or color. I have a black. I don't know if this is even if this is wet still. Yeah, that'll work. Just to have a gauge of it going in. So that didn't take it very far.
And it'll stop. Next you're going to switch to 1/28.
Oh, actually I was on all of them there. Oh. Actually, so let me... I made a mistake there. Okay, good. It's out. I actually didn't put it far enough in, so I was not following the directions. Now I should be following the directions. Okay, now it's pulling through. Because I had it on mix and not the original. Okay, cool. So now, should go to 1.
Stay at 3. And we're going to extrude red.
So now it's 28.
The
3.
red filament and...
Okay. So now 28 for 1. Speed of 3. We should go straight in. There. Nice. That went in. Mark this one again. For motion. Okay. I believe I should just have to do this for each.
The yellow filament go in like this. So they don't have that curve like the blue one. So you're not going to load it like this. You're going to load it like this. So again, tool 1, feed amount 28, feed rate 3, and extrude. Now we're going to move to drive 2. We're going to stay on 28. We're going to stay on feed rate 3, and we're going to extrude. Again, just like I showed you, we're going to go in like this and extrude.
Oh, that one.
Now we're going to switch to drive 3. We're going to go back to feed amount 23, and we're going to stay on feed rate 3. Just like the blue filament, we're going to have this kind of loop going like this.
Why is that grabbing?
And extrude.
Flip that. I'm on tool 2.
So a
There
good
we
thing
go.
you can
Now I
do
grabbed it.
to help you visually see that these are going in is you can take a Sharpie
Yeah,
marker
for some reason I wasn't grabbing it initially.
and make a couple marks on your filament.
Time to do the clear. This could be black, white, whatever the case. And this one they're saying to put in the same kind of twist to keep it away from the other one. So boom, instead of just in, it needs to be like a full twist in. That's weird how it's trying to, yeah. Well, we'll see how this does. Boom. Like this. Again, to keep it down. This one it wants 23 for tool 3. Looks like it grabbed it right away. Sweet. Alright. Sounds like the next one's going to be, or is it all, or we'll see. What's it say?
We're going to follow step 3, which is once each filament has moved down through the print head to the staging area, directly above the PTFE insert, set the feed amount to 20 millimeters and extrude all. So we should start to see all our filaments moving. And if you see any filament starting to hesitate, you can help move it along.
Right,
but ultimately, once you get past this 20 millimeters, you should be properly loaded into your chamber.
They're all moving.
So once we do this one more time, we should start to see some extrusion come out of our hot end. So we're going to extrude another 20 millimeters.
Doing the second
and
extrude.
As you can see, we are extruding properly.
And saying after this we should see something come out the hot end.
M3D's instructions say to extrude one more time. That was our second, and then
there we go.
our
Now
third.
it's coming out.
So this is where I like to take my temperature up to printing temps to make sure that every filament is working properly, and then as soon as I find out that that is the case, I will turn the heater back down to 0, as any prolonged inactivity to the motors and pushing filament may cause the filament to bake, and which will eventually cook and cause blockages. So doing that, I will go through each one of these, and again, we can now right click on these, and I'm going to set this to 100. I'm going to keep my feed rate at 3, but I want to now purge each one of these heads by 100 so that I make sure that the remaining PETG filament is out of the head. So I'm actually going to set this to 255, that is what my PETG filament was at. Whatever filament you had loaded previously, you want to set to that temperature or higher, depending on what you're loading into it, to properly purge your filament that was inside of it. Results may vary, and if you do not unload properly, you can see the blues coming out nice. 100 millimeters per filament might seem overkill, but better safe than sorry, especially with having to declog these. They are no fun to declog, and if you have an extra $25, I would suggest highly that you invest in a few.
Okay, temperature's up, but for whatever reason it's not refreshing on the display.
So now we're extruding
So I'm
100
refreshing it.
millimeters of the red.
And I'm going to go through this process of each one to see how that goes. Because right now it says, yeah, it's holding it, but So I'm going to, it is taking a moment to connect. And so now let me go, until it does, I'm going to cool you down. So I at least got it to come out. So I'm going to let that cool. And then I'm going to try to do each one to make sure they're each coming through. So right now it's not responding on the control. It says disconnected. Why are you disconnected? That's disconcerting. Says it's connected. I may try to reboot this. Now I have it set to cool down. It is loaded. I still need to purge each one of those heads. So that's a bit of an annoyance. Okay. Why does it say disconnected? Huh. Well, I guess I can keep doing it through here, through the direct control, but that's kind of annoying. Let me double check. These are, says 2, so I can go about 245 with these to make them print well. And we will go under the load. I do load 0. Can't say that's actually doing anything. Is it doing something late? That's temperature. I see it's coming through again. What's really crazy to me is that this is But the duet board is not connecting. 98's correct. I'm going to try a different browser. Oops. Disconnected. Can't really speak to it. I may. Huh. That's showing up. I'm perplexed. What do I do next? It won't connect. Everything else looks good. Woo! Cut that out. Alright, so home it. See, it gets that edge. It's hitting this end stop on the X carriage part of it versus the way back where. I manually set the G code to only go 5 back instead of 52 back, so it should be better than that, but it's not. And now the problem is, well, I could try this. Let's see. I don't know if it'll let me do this yet. Because the problem is it's just going to re-home when I go print. Okay, polygon vase. Seeing it does a rehome. Which means even if I tried to manually adjust the Y, it's going to go to where it thinks it needs to be home. So I got to figure out that G code issue. Do not know. So admittedly, while that's going, this is me passing the time. I'm going to also do Duolingo. Good evening, bye. That's going to be... That's this one. That's bye. So good evening. Nope. So I could do like... But that's not it. Oh no, it did work. Konbanwa sayonara. Keep getting messed up. Well then, good night's the one I keep messing up. It's this one, well... Ja. Oyasumi nasai. Finally got those. Yeesh, that one kills me. The actual lesson. No. Ah? Ah. Man, the shape of the katakana. Ra. That's gonna be ka. Ra. Li. Li is gonna be Ra. Alright, so that one's ka. That one's a. Me. Ai. Ra. Okay, so it went to the same spot. I don't know if it's just this bed material, but it doesn't look like it's adhering well. Too high. So if I loosen these up just a little bit. Oh, that's the other way. Whoops. Looks like I might have got it close enough now to hear better. It's a fine adjustment. It looks like the bass is going on there now. That's good. Shout out to Travis trying to help me figure this out. Unfortunately, I don't know if it's going to work. I don't know what's wrong on this thing. Suggesting I reach out to Michael Armani from M3D for details. So nice things like this. I have a G-code set put on there, and it looks like it's trying to print. Looks like it's changing color gradient as it goes. No, right there it like jumped way high. Now it's missing the code. So it just failed. This is my voxelized code. Bummer. Okay, it like skipped a frame there, so I may have to cut a different one and try it. Pause first. Cancel. But slightly better results. I got a solid base, so I think I tuned the Z-axis better. Like I said, it looked like it just jumped in the middle of the code. That right there, again, there's something in the G-code that says, nope, I'm just going to move all the way over. Where again, somehow about where the Z or the Y-axis is just wrong. They're saying, I don't know, maybe a bad board, something could be jacked with it. Really hard to say. Grr. But I'm getting different colors in here. There is mixing happening. Alright, try something else. Alright, so somewhere in the G code, the temp dropped to 0, which is bizarre to me. So I manually told it to go back to 240. Wonder if there's not some lingering element in there. At least now it looks like it's adhering and pushing. The outside was more just the brim on it, looked like. Unless there's something in the code I'm not aware of. So we're going to watch this first layer, see if that actually works. This is supposed to be just a spiral vase, which admittedly, I don't know if I'm going to be printing faster than what it can handle. It's supposed to slowly cycle between each of the different heads from 0 to 3 as it goes up the whole level of this print for a percentage of fill. So it should be a slow gradient change over the percentage of the print versus color to color to color. So it should be a slow constant gradient. All the fans are running. Yeah, I'm gonna have to check to see if that'll switch again. Looks like I got the layer height dialed in, at least for this main part. I'm gonna have to play with profiles on the height adjustment side too, because nozzle size, it let me pick between 3 or 4 like even numbers, but this one's a 3.5, so I'm on a 4 profile, which may be bad because it may not be extruding quite enough. And right now it's looking okay. I am really happy with how quiet it is. So assuming things actually work, like, it is actually way quieter than any of my other printers, than all my Robos. I did adjust in Cura to make sure that it was using RepRap for the code style, so that seems to be working. This initial mix should be all cyan, if you will, but it looks on the board more like green, light teal. I'm wondering if it isn't doing some mixing already in the code. I also am wondering with the Duet board, I'm sure there's a way to do it. Plug in directly to the USB and just read the G-code as it's going through what the board's processing. I know with the Matter Control software you can do that. You can just kind of reach right in if you connect to a printer through USB. I haven't looked up yet what I can or how I can do that via the Duet, what software or how I can monitor it direct. It looked like almost everything is set up for the web interface, which I am not having any luck with. It looks like it's a little bit more than halfway through this bottom layer, which is still looking really clean. I just can't really speak to the color. You know what I will do again, just so I can keep an eye on these. Now the clear really hasn't gone through at all. Who's moving? Does look like blue's moving. It looks like it's maybe the only one. Which is what I would expect. And I'm just wondering if the color is looking weird because it's against the black backdrop on the bottom. I'm kind of curious. I have these overture sheets that do not work for my Robo well. It's a little small. Shucks. See if I had some replacements just to throw on there without having to potentially buy some more. This is likely going to just all be sped up to show results. Fortunately, my time-lapse GoPro seems to want to die. So I may try to set this other one up for time-lapse. Sounds wonderful. Yeah, the blue is definitely moving. I don't see any other progress on any of the other hash marks yet. So cyan, whatever this transparent blue. Marks definitely have gone through. Seems to be going through clean. Maintaining temp. So like, it can print. Almost done with the first layer, the bottom layer. And honestly, the rest should start going a little quicker because if it does a spiral, I don't know if it'll do another thickness on the bottom layer. I forget what my settings were. That's going to be basically one layer. I feel like it should still give me a bottom layer even when I spiral cut it. Super quiet. Still see the blue feeding well. I would guess it might do one more base layer. Get that thicker, but we'll see. Yeah, maybe doing the spiral now. It doesn't seem to make sense though. Okay, let's do another base. So I feel like it'd have to. Alright. So I set up this other one as a time lapse. Hopefully what you guys are seeing here is that things may actually be working. The big difference I did, I'm in this software right now and I can see what's happening. The biggest thing I did is I went out and bought a new memory card. So my concern ahead of time was that maybe the memory card was faulty. I kept seeing errors in that I would put something on the card, it would disappear, come back, all these things, just real pain in the rear trying to troubleshoot what was going on. So I got that done. I will say that prior to the card getting set up, with the old card I was able to at least print a file that I had cut in Cura and threw on. That was just a quick vase mode, although if you look it's very thin, it broke, and actually what happened is that between each of the main color changes, because I was using the pure colors, with the other heads parked, it would go to such a point that when it was ready to start filling the next color and diminish the previous, the next color wouldn't start. And so lesson learned, what I was having to do is pause it between. I did a good job here, I missed it in the next layer a bit and didn't do it at all towards the end, is that I actually stopped the tool and then did a manual, I paused it, did a manual load for the next color, and then started again and it was able to transition in. start adding material. So looking on, talking to some of the guys, the people on the Facebook group, they all agreed, or initial responses, that they try to create colors that have a little bit of blend of each of the colors. Someone suggests at least 2%. I am doing another one of these vases that is one thicker, not just base mode, and one that I did in voxelizer that is going to be slightly thicker, and I did it where no less than 7% of any color is going to be in that print. And so we'll see if that works. Right now I'm doing a benchy, and it's a little more complex, but the hope is that there's enough colors in it and the overall tower around it to get me all the colors moving. And so we'll see. I'm going to have this go for a little bit, watching it, basically just checking to see if these colors are feeding. I have it transitioning between, now granted, the colorizer I'm looking at in voxelizer has it as more solid colors, but essentially a greenish hull with a little bit of blue splash on the bottom of the boat, some yellow boxes, I think I did yellow, and a red interior like the steering wheel and pipes and top stuff, kind of blending some of the colors throughout, also using mostly colors that have some blend of all colors, and a few colors that are primary, but they're interdispersed between the rest of the material. So we'll see what comes out. And right now I'm not able to see a ton of motion. I'm trying to see which one's moving the most. It looks like we got mostly blue, maybe a little bit of the red, the magenta, but it does kind of look like they're all at least progressing. The bigger challenge will be the clear, but I think even that one's got a little bit going. The nice thing, again, I'll reiterate, I am very pleased with how quiet the motors are, and I mean, even just the regular stepper motors for each of the axis is really quiet, which is wonderful. And the fans that are on there right now are pretty chill. I also had some issue with the Cura slicing on this one, where I thought I had it set up. I must have done something I didn't know from the layer change piece, or whatever comes through in the melt plug-in that you use in Cura, because it went from being prepped at the 240C that I'm using for this Nova Maker filament for the PETG, and all of a sudden it dropped to 0. So I had to get it to print. I had to manually go in and tweak it back up before it got stuck, trying to push through no heat. So that was also kind of a surprise. Alright, still looks like mostly blue. I am happy it looks like I got the height to start prints dialed in well. I'll be curious to see how the outer shell goes for the color tower. I like that the color tower is just around the print versus a separate block. Saves some space. I know that was an old style from some of the first multi-material type things done, and that's, I think, even with the Prusa and some of the slices they have, it's kind of how it went. So this is, I like that they've done that. One of the features I'd love to see really tweaked out, that admittedly the community needs to look at, is trying to use more of the infill from the material to do color changes, so you can have less of a tower on the side, although this tower is already pretty thin, which I really like. Another thing I was thinking, just as a code element, something I might just try to figure out the G code for, in my robo printers and such, they do initially the R2 does a line across to kind of do a purge line or something to initially start the print. And I was thinking that would be a great opportunity with the quad to prime all the different motors, all the different colors, where you could start it with each individual color to some degree, maybe like one line that's half and half, and then the next line back the other half, and then the third line that's all four, kind of pushing together just so they're all primed, have all moved a little bit. And then one of my thoughts is that even if you're trying to do pure colors, if there wouldn't be a way to introduce a randomized element into every other layer, every layer, something like that, just a moment where it pushes all the motors, some percentage. And so with that, being able to get it so that no matter what your print setup is, no matter what colors you're using, you'd have at least something in either each layer, the tower, just somewhere in there that is printing that it would push all the motors at least some percentage, whatever that makes sense to be. That if there could be a way to find it that's hidden in the code. Now, I mean, it'd be a challenge with some of the transparencies, like this kind of filament where you might see it inside, it might muck up a color change. But it would be great, even if you could just shove it in the tower. Like I would take a tower as being just an extra line thick if it meant that all of the material moved a tiny bit each layer, just such that at least what I experienced in the first print, I didn't run into one where one of them got stuck. So right now, checking in it, I can tell that yellow, clear, blue have all moved for sure. Red looks like it's moved a tiny bit. And so I have a good sense for what's going on with the print. So awesome. With that, we'll let the time lapse go, and hopefully my problems are solved. I say that knocking on something, the floor wood, not to jinx it, but we'll see. But anyhow, who's there? So this one came out pretty good. So interesting to see the color tower around it. Now, admittedly, I don't think the colors all match just right. I think the yellow may not have come out enough, or the blue, so I'll make sure to start them again, although get enough green that probably did come through, but the yellow doesn't seem like it came out much. So I thought I'd put a little more distinct colors into the boaty, the benchy, sorry, of the boat. The blue came out a little bit, the green's good. And then I tried to do a little bit of yellow towards the top, and a different color for the box, and the window frame kind of came out front and back. And I kind of see it on the steering wheel. So the colors kind of came, but not great. So the next one I'm going to do here is going to be another one of kind of like these vases, a vase like this. But it's going to be hopefully a little cleaner transition between the colors. And hopefully that will allow it to not break apart and get limp in the middle. So we'll start that one up. And if that one works, I will feel pretty, a lot better about whether it was the memory card that really fixed things. It's interesting seeing that extra tower around. Like I said, I still would love to find ways to minimize waste, but it wasn't too bad. Alright, so let's go ahead and home you in. This BuildTak type of surface they're using actually holds really well. It ripped off a portion of the bottom of the benchy where it didn't adhere perfectly or adhere too well. As I separated, it actually pulled off the benchy. I actually look at the quality of it. I mean, this is a transparent, so I can see some of the inside layers and stops from it, but the actual outside finish of it is pretty clean. As it comes to benchies, actually the overhangs, I will give it a pretty solid performance. It's pretty stringy, but I'm not all that surprised for stringiness off of this kind of print head. I'd be a little surprised if I could control it so well with 4 motors, not stringing so much. So that doesn't bother me too much. I apologize, it's basically 2:30 in the morning as I'm finishing this up. So, I said, that's in there. Let's go ahead and see if we can get one more good print out of here. Actually, before I do that, let's preheat it. And I'm going to check, I'm going to do some loads. Once it's heated up, I'll do some loads. I want to make sure each color is working ahead of time. I don't know if that's necessary for every time you print with a quad. I'm going a little overkill right now. Admittedly, this is color printing. It's likely... The expectation is not for me to be using this for my normal prints. This is really just for color prints. And so, while these kind of extra procedures might use a bunch of extra filament, I would rather use a little bit more filament to get clean prints than trying to restart one of these prints, because I think that would be a bigger mess. I do think also that I need to build some kind of guides for the filament. I'm actually thinking of mounting them like just little rings, if I will, probably in nylon, but just glued to the sides of these holders on top, right where the filament lines are coming, just so to kind of pull these in and just kind of light guides. It doesn't need to be real close. Same thing there. Just to kind of give it some easy path through and up a little bit so it's not coming over the metal frame. Really the only one that's kind of struggling is this one, and that's the red because I had broken the mount as I was putting it on. Alright, so now that we're in here, let's go ahead and try to load on each one of these separately. Alright, blue loaded nice. Yep, magenta went in good. Yellow kind of seems like yellow is like lagging behind the way the others felt. And clear work too. So they all came through. That's what I wanted. Come on. It almost goes too fast through. There we go. Print. Now I want to do the vase again. Benchy. Poly vase. Should be the one. Let's see. Actually, let's see. See, nice. I have to actually look as it starts because it's so quiet. I need to figure out the right settings for a vase such that it doesn't need any of the tower around it. I think this one still prints one, based on what the Voxler. I'm forgetting the name of it now. I'm tired. But based on the software that initially prints, I think this one still does a tower, so it's going to waste that. Well, it actually looks about the right size for the base. So it doesn't currently, but I'm pretty sure it has a tower still. So we'll see. We'll see what this does. I'm kind of curious. Let me start the time lapse. That time lapse, and we'll see what happens. Like usual, highly recommend, always recommend you watch the full first layer going down. You don't have to, it depends how much you trust your printer. In all honesty, right now I'm trusting this one more than my Robos for first layers. This one's it's like it's not having to do a weird Z-value hop like the Marlin does over there, where it doesn't seem to ever hold it quite right. This one's just got a much more rigid frame, which I like. There we go. That's the tower on the outside. So now that it's changing colors, that's what I was expecting to see. That's alright. Like I said, the nice thing is, and we'll see, what'll be really interesting is where this one went with most like full one color through, and it's really pretty, the colors. This one has a solid blend in it, and the blue on this one is pretty much one color. What I like is because it's a thinner design, although too thin in this case, the colors really shine, especially in the light. I really like that, so I'm hoping this one will come through, but because I wanted to make sure that none of them clog while it goes to the longer print and that we get a much better transition between the layers, the other thing I did is I made sure to keep at least 7% flow on the 3 heads that aren't working. So it's starting with a, it's like an 80% on each one as it goes to the full layer. So 80% blue with a 7% of the other 3. And it'll do that as it switches over to an 80% red with 7, 80% yellow, 7, 80% clear. So we'll see. I expect it to be less distinct colors all the way through. Like even right now it's looking pretty green, which I think is just kind of what we're getting out of this transparent filament from Nova Maker as they're all blended together. I don't trust right now because these motors are still sitting as they print right around, at least from my external temperature gun, which is loosely accurate, at about high 50s, almost 60 degrees C, even with this fan on it. So I don't trust necessarily doing PLA yet, but I may try to find, and right now honestly it seems like filament's a bit hard to come by anywhere, but I may try to find solid distinct color PETG and see if I can do some color prints off that as well versus just the transparent. I figured this would be a fun one to start with, do some kind of organic or crystalline looking things, because I could really see doing things to hang in the window, especially with PETG. Should be able to handle sunlight, and if it has this kind of transparency, thin enough but shine, should look really cool, almost like stained glass. So that's part of my plan of some ideas of some of the prints I'd like to do. But I think that's about it, all I have to say. So right now it's happy, hopefully it continues this way, and if I follow all the rules everyone else has been stating, I'm hoping, crossing fingers, stomping on wood, that I don't suffer major clogs in this thing anytime soon. I say soon because every printer I've ever had eventually gets clogged. Something goes wrong with G-code, something gets a mess. Now granted, those ones are using older motors and switches and everything. This one's using fairly up to date, even though it's a cheaper printer. That's partially why it's so quiet. And it has, I think, even with the controller board, some other features on board. And I forget whether this board's 32-bit or not. I kind of felt like it was. I did notice when I put the new faster, really nice, cheap, $12 I think, $13 whatever micro SD card, but it's a, was it 32 gig card, which is plenty for all the space it needs here. I think the original card was what, a 512 meg. Yeah, 512 meg, not even a gig. So it's like, I almost wonder like what kind of card this was that you could even get that with anymore. Bulk cheap crap card. But this one was less than 15 bucks out the door, and it booted so much faster to the actual screen and the IP off of that card, since it makes sense with a faster SD card, since it's reading it with the Duet board, it's reading everything off the card once it boots. And so that actually makes a lot of sense. But yeah, so oddly enough, I'd say that was probably the best upgrade I had. It's at least what got me working. But that's it. Out of here. I'm going to let this go overnight, and hopefully it goes great. Hey everybody, so this one did not turn out as well as I'd hoped. I paused, or I stopped and canceled it once I woke up today, came down and decided to take a look. Obviously this slice from Voxler did not work how I had intended. It looks as though the outside ring for the tower, for the color change tower, did not work. Interesting effect, as well as there's some thin walls here right at that layer change in color between the green and yellow, so it didn't blend properly. So I may try a different attempt. This one might be one that I work more with the Cura slicer and melt to figure out, because I did like the colors that came out of this one. So still a lot to learn, but I will say that it seems like the hardware is all behaving as it is intended. So I think now it's a lot of more on me to learn how to optimize the process and figure out the best settings for this printer. But I'm overall really excited to have it and to start adding it to my production. So I'll probably spend a little more time doing some test prints, hopefully try to figure out the details of how to get this to stick right, especially in those transitions. But alright, so hopefully with that's okay. Start again. So that's it. I'm ready to now put this back in with the rest of my printers, make some room, and have it sit where it's going to live as I continue to play with it and start getting some projects together. Hopefully you've seen a little bit of my process going through, learned a little bit, have some awareness of things to look out for when you get one. But in general, I'm excited, looking forward to, and we'll see how this goes forward. Hopefully from this point forward, I'll be printing mostly just success stories versus hiccups, fixes, and things like that. So thank you for checking it out, and hopefully you also have a great time out there 3D printing. Thank you.